Okay.
All right, great. Now we're recording.
Awesome.
Well, it's very nice to finally meet both of you.
Yes.
So, I know there's going to be a pause or two, so we'll try to make this work. All right, so why don't you both introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'll go first. Okay. I'm Aaron Lessard, for those who don't know. I'm originally from Westport, Mass. Grew up there. I actually took lessons from Pacadero for about, from like 9 years old until the week before I went to college, which was pretty wild. So, and then after lessons with Pat, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I was there from 18 up till 21. I was able to get out of there a year early, which was awesome. And I have a degree in music business management, which has been actually really helpful for a lot of unrelated stuff. So, and then after Berklee, I was kind of just working, saving some money a few months afterwards, and I moved down to Nashville in September of 17. And I've been here ever since. And around December of that year, started writing a lot more stuff in the rock and roll, rockabilly type scene, and started getting into that. And then I met Stephanie when I first moved here, and then we kind of got to the point about a year later where we started to work together, gigging a lot locally in town until we decided to do this duo project that we've been working on now for the last few months, and that's kind of where we're at now. So, yeah.
And there it is.
And there it is. That's it.
Do I need to say anything? He's kind of covered it all. It's nice to meet you, Ryan.
You as well. So, Stephanie, you just finished up your semester at Belmont, right?
Yes. I've been teaching longer than I would like to admit. It's been quite a journey. I started teaching for a summer to save some money in between as musicians move from town to town trying to find their way, and I ended up getting 3 university jobs. But I'm originally from West Virginia, so I've been in Nashville now quite a while, but I moved back after being on the East Coast and then the West Coast and then back to the East Coast. And then I thought, okay, I need to save up some money. So I started teaching just for the summer. I ended up at Fairmont State University and West Virginia University, and then privately. And then I was singing in a cover band, and then I was singing in a martini bar. And I'm like, wow, I'm actually making a living back home, which was not the plan. So 2 years after that, I applied at Belmont and then and got in. So I've been back in Nashville since 2007. Teaching at Belmont and commercial voice, which is interesting because talking about backgrounds, I originally, when I was in high school, I went to Carnegie Mellon for their music theater, like pre-college thing. And then after that, I went to the Eastman School of Music for 2 years for classical voice performance, and then transferred to the Royal Academy of Music to finish out my undergrad in classical voice performance. And then in my postgrad, I did musical theater performance. And then moved back to America and decided I didn't want to do any of that anymore, and then completely changed my voice. And so now I sing a lot of jazz and a lot of stuff that I write that I call jazzicana, which is kind of jazz and Americana bluesiness combined, I guess. And I teach a lot of singers now how to go from a classical technique or a musical theater technique into a commercial technique, because even though it's all singing, it's 3 completely different types of singing. So you really have to kind of know stylistically what you're doing. So it's been an interesting journey, I guess you could say. I never started out to do this, but here we are. So it's been good.
Yeah, very cool. Speaking of brand new things, I know you had sent us a video, and I saw from Aaron that it had just hit 6K for views. Yes. So talk a little bit about, I want to hear a little bit, not just about the recording of the song, but how you two started to get together to do duos.
Well, I do a lot of jazz gigs around town, and I had a guitar player I've been working with pretty steadily, and then I had some gigs come up where he was teaching and couldn't do them. So Aaron and I had been friends for quite a while, and I said, hey, I've got this regular Wednesday night jazz gig. Would you be interested in coming on board with it? And he said yes. So that started, and then my guitar player got another gig on my normal Sunday night jazz show at a different venue. So then Aaron came on to that, and so you just kind of infiltrated my band, I guess you could say. And he was just kind of there, and with a lot of the stuff that I'm writing, which is what I'm trying to get out, like I said, which is more of the jazz Americana, whatever vibe, bluesy vibe. I like using guitar more than piano, because piano to me really sets it more in a jazz environment where I'm trying to get more into kind of the roots environment. And so I started using guitar probably, 5 or 6 years ago to try to start using that. And then your style just really fit with what I was trying to do artistically in my original music. So, and of course, when you're trained, you can do the jazz stuff fine, but then we're trying to take that and we're trying to grow artistically into what we're both trying to do, which really, when you put it together, works. We did a gig in Memphis last October. It was a songwriter gig, and he went to accompany me, and then I said, well, if you're going to be there, you should sing some stuff as well. So we just kind of went back and forth. And the audience really liked it, because he had his high energy stuff, and then I had my kind of slower, sultry stuff, and the dynamic just kind of worked. So, here we are.
Yeah, and along with that too, it's absolutely true that the two styles kind of work together, considering that you're kind of taking what's somewhat popular right now is this kind of like counter to like pop music right now, with a lot of these like really raw, organic, like kind of artists that are kind of doing the vintagey thing, but we're not trying to be like a timepiece act. We're just trying to draw like a lot of influence in like tone and in maybe some of the songwriting style, but trying to make it something new. So it's definitely, I would definitely say it's like Jazzicana meets like hints of rockabilly, but it's definitely more broad than that. So I don't know, and maybe it'll be a new genre that comes out of it, but it's definitely a crossover. And then when it comes to the video that we did, the whole marketing idea behind that was kind of, well, this is a new thing we're introducing, and we kind of came to the conclusion that we didn't want to give it a whole new name, just because we just found it would be really difficult to introduce a new whole series of social media pages and other content that people that are already following us. I mean, it's kind of like starting over from scratch. So we just kind of thought, let's kind of market it separate but together, and then let's introduce a cover that's really familiar first, but with a really big twist on it to try and catch people's attention before showing any original music. So we just sat down. We were picking at Heartbreak Hotel, and I kind of had this weird like, well, what if I turn the guitar like at some point into kind of like this Dan Auerbach Black Keys kind of thing, or like a Jack thing, and then kind of build a dynamic from there. And what we found, what was really interesting with that cover, is just how, even though there's so much empty space going on, it seems to work. And we've been lucky that the video has been catching a little bit of traction. So we're hoping to shoot for about over 10,000 views would be an awesome start, and it would certainly help with a lot of the business end of things too if we were able to do that.
Yeah. At least here in Nashville, it's great to be diverse, because you want to have as many options on the table as you can to try to make a living. So the jazz quartet that I have is great. That's where we kind of get paid, around town to do stuff and corporate gigs and everything. And then when you can take that into your own thing, and what's interesting about our show is it's your thing and then it's my thing. So really either way it wins. So which is why we really wanted to keep our own name separate, as opposed to creating a whole different duo name, because then our names separately aren't getting out there at the same time. So it's just kind of a win-win situation for everyone, and just trying to be as diverse and open to opportunity as possible, but at the same time, not really knowing what you're doing. We're not just, going out there and just creating something just to do it. I mean, we've actually kind of, been thinking about this stuff a long time. It's just great that it's kind of come together.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had both mentioned it, that like, I was really struck by how much space was in that recording. And I know, Aaron, I talk with this about with my students all the time. Guitar is really tough because we don't have to breathe. We don't have to breathe, unlike other instruments, right? If you're playing saxophone or you're singing, you have to breathe. You have to stop. But guitar is one of those things where it's really hard to keep putting your fingers down.
Yeah.
So I was very blown away by that.
Yeah, Stephanie picks on me, and the guitar player's curse is like noodling, and I find that definitely piano players and guitar players have that problem because they're comping instruments, so their job is to fill in, that not really space ultimately, because I would say bass kind of has more of that with low end, but I would say the role of guitar and piano in my mind is more so to fill in the necessary chordal structure of whatever you're playing. So and a lot of that song, which was really interesting too, in the Heartbreak cover, a lot of the time I wasn't even playing chords. I mean, a lot of the times I was just chugging the low E string, which is not something I would ever really do because I'm just like more of a theory geek. So I think like I need to play all these hip chords underneath her, but more so than that, I was kind of like, I'm just gonna chug like a low E string because the tone was so beefy. I'm like, it just seems to work better in this kind of isolated setting. So
well, and I think you get to the point too, at least I have in my life maybe, where you can play all those notes if you like, I'll just stop because it's not a competition.
Right. Yeah.
And the one thing as a singer, sometimes you do get stepped upon, and that's another reason I kind of stopped using piano. I love piano, but there isn't space really. It's constantly playing. And another reason I really kind of was in the jazz quartet, there is some more space within that, but then even breaking that down more and more, we just did a jazz gig with just guitar and bass without even drums, and it was really cool. And so that's why I'm excited about the duo. I know a lot of people think, oh, you need this band, you need this bigness, you need this whatever. Bigness is that a word? This big sound. And so just kind of breaking it down into two people that can have a flowing dynamic. We're not to a click. We don't have to have other people that we've already worked this out with. We can just kind of look at each other and just go with wherever that moment's happening. And to me, that's what making music is.
And I think that's the big part with the course too that we're going to be doing at Double Bar. I think a lot of it, when we're talking about the accompanist and vocalist topics, a lot of that, it's going to have to do with a lot of that. And I find that when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of experience playing with singers, or you don't have a lot of experience playing out and stuff like that, it's definitely a learning curve, and it's a necessary learning curve. So you definitely need to go through it. So it's not a problem if it happens at first, where you need to learn what register can I play in? Okay, and that comes down to as well really learning your instrument and knowing like voicings, and you don't have to know everything in the world, but just knowing like what registers can I not play in with his or her voice, when do I lay off, when do I provide more, when they're dynamically, if they're belting, if they're getting louder, I have to match their dynamic. Don't play timid and then reel it back in moments that are necessary. So it's just trying to develop that chemistry. So I definitely,
it's listening.
And it's listening.
It's listening to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's listening, but it's like active listening. It's not just letting something happen. It's being aware in every moment and being like 1 foot in the back, 1 foot forward, and then 1 foot in the, like having 3 different spaces, knowing what you've done, knowing where you could go, and being where you're supposed to be at right then and there. So let's talk a little bit about the workshop that you're coming up to, back to your hometown, back to this neck of the woods. So why don't you two go in about the different things that we're offering, the intent behind the course, and everything.
Well, we definitely kind of want to keep it more, what is the Nashville industry like? What do you need to be a professional? Not only in Nashville, but everywhere. And we just say the Nashville industry because this is the one where,
this is where we are
all the time. And I find that there's so much, and especially through a lot of the teaching that I've done, when you're doing your own journey and you're learning these things, and then you go back and you're working with someone that's like 18 to 22 or whatever, and they're just beginning this journey, you forget about a lot of these things that happen because now it's just kind of common knowledge. And so having to go back and explore it and really think it through. And for example, just talking about working with singers, you know, if you're a singer that's come from a theater background or a classical background, which most of us do in choral music in high school or show choir or, you know, voice lessons or whatever, you're really coming from this, okay, I'm going to sing this Mozart aria. It is this tempo. You stand there. The piano player starts. You really don't have a say in the tempo. You don't have a say in the key. You don't have a say in the phrasing. It is what it is because that's what Mozart wrote. And that's lovely in the traditional sense of what that is. Then you jump to this genre of music where you have so much freedom. And you have to have freedom because it's already been done. We're constantly trying to recreate. And you don't want to regurgitate the same type of music. So for singers now, it's, wait a minute, you don't rely on your accompanist to give you a tempo. You give the tempo. You don't rely on someone to give you a key. You know your key. Yeah. You don't rely on someone to tell you how to phrase. You have to know what you're saying. Yeah. You have to know what you're feeling. So much of that in what we're talking about, and what I find a lot when I'm working with accompanists and singers, they don't really know how to work together. Because the accompanist is doing their thing, and then the singer's kind of expecting the accompanist to do something, and then it becomes about the accompanist. It doesn't become about the singer. And at the end of the day, you have to be communicating the song. I mean, that's why you're there. If you can't communicate, then what's the point? So it's really kind of taking this back and understanding what are our roles, how do we work together, what do I need as a singer to be a professional? I need to know my key. I need to know my tempo. I need to know my repertoire. I need to know my branding. I need to know how it fits together. I need to know how to lead a band. I need to know what to say. I need to have charts. You know, all these different things that a lot of times when you're growing up, this is just kind of given to you. And then you enter the real world and you're like, oh, wait, I need what? You know, so it's a whole different experience now on the professional side of it than when you're in college or when you're in school or when you're, you know, whatever, and you kind of have a teacher and that's our job as teachers, is to guide you along. You know, once you're on your own, you kind of have to know what you're doing. Yeah. So I think a lot of our course is really going to kind of talk about that and how do you be a professional. You know, here in Nashville, a lot of people talk about chick singers, and that just makes me want to strangle somebody, because a singer is just as much of a musician as anyone else. Yeah. But a lot of times, because they don't really know what they need to do, it's kind of, oh, honey, go sit over there. I'll handle it. No, I'll handle it. It's my gig. Yeah. It's my name. It's my band. I'm paying you. You're not paying me. So, but if you're going to do that, then how do you have to, how do you have to reference everything? And then how do you also have to have confidence in what you're doing and talk to your band and explain what you need? You know, there's so much more involved than just getting up and singing, which a lot of people just don't really understand.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think when the course is going to have a bunch of different topics, but as it pertains to this one, that's absolutely true. I mean, I think one of the goals that we're trying to achieve is kind of ridding that stereotype of vocalists, because, I mean, even when I was at Berkeley, it was still a stereotype, you know, and it does happen more with female vocalists. But I mean, it's just a matter of being educated on that type of professionalism and knowing what you need to do to remove that stereotype from day one, right, so that you're looked at
as a professional,
as a professional,
and as an equal.
Yes, because otherwise it seems that a lot of people in the band will try and run the show from that point. And you know, if you're going to be a band leader and it's your project, you can't have that type of energy around in the atmosphere, because it definitely lowers your confidence. But yeah, besides that, we're also going over a few other topics. So we're just going to kind of give a brief overview of kind of like a day-to-day for a Nashville musician is like. For, you know, it's crazy. We know so many people that, you know, they'll go and play a jazz gig on a Thursday night, and then they'll be at, like, I don't know, they'll be at Bridgestone Arena next week, night, and yeah, it's like, or whatever. So it's just like, you know, they have so many, there's so many people in town that just have such a wide range of what type of work they're doing, and kind of introducing what that's like. You know, when I went to Nashville in 2015, and when I went for the first time on a trip, it was really glorified. And I think what we want to do is kind of definitely want to show like what it can be, but definitely also want to show what it is. And then along with those things, I mean, we're going to go over a few minor business topics. Like when it comes to social media stuff, we've been really working hard at that. And I think like the number one advice I could give, especially depending upon the type of people we have in the course, but if we have people in the course that are around like, in their teens and stuff, definitely my number one advice would be just grow your social media now. I mean, these younger people are the people that have kind of grew up their whole life without knowing what social media is like. So they've always been, accustomed to it. So definitely like if they can grow, their pages in their teens and get up to a couple thousand starting out, that's a great building block because it's all people that they're actually really well connected to. And it's people that want to support them. And then if they decide to have a career in music and pursue that, they kind of have a head start and they're not fighting to grab people within their demographic.
Can I say something? But at the same time, and I'm big on this, I know we go back and forth because he's far more social media oriented than I am. I do what I have to do, but I don't enjoy it because I feel like a lot of people spend more time on their social media than they do on their craft.
Oh, yeah.
So, another thing is I think what is acceptable for your social media if you are a singer? Are you just going to take, fashion model selfies? Or are you actually going to go and learn your craft and learn how to sing and learn your instrument and learn who you are? So there's this social media thing is so broad. Yeah. And I think you have to come back to basics, what's important.
Yeah.
While you're trying to grow this at the same time.
Yeah, well, definitely showcase yourself too. I mean, make that the focal point. There's so many band pages on social media or artist pages where these people like you can't even find a piece of music content. No. Like even like a 10-second or 20-second video of them like doing something, and I'm like, and they're like, I'm an artist, and I'm like, you are? I'm like, you seem like you're not. It's just weird. So besides that, I mean, the other stuff that's more music related, we're gonna go over some vocal stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Vocal technique is really the most important thing, and I always try to say it's like you're an athlete. If you want to go out and play every day, you need to know how to keep your muscles and your body and your health and your mind and everything, focused on what you're trying to do, because it isn't like guitar. Guitar, you can play with a sinus infection, you can play with strep throat, you can't do that as a singer. So how much of this and how do you build your stamina so that way over the course of your life you can do a 30-minute gig, an hour gig, a 3-hour gig, wake up the next day, do it again, wake up the next day, do it again. If you want to be a professional singer, a lot of this goes into that. So knowing your craft, knowing your technique, knowing where you are on that day. If you're only at 60% health, you can't sing like you're at 100% health. You got to make smart choices, and you have to know what those choices are. So a lot of that too is, and the one thing that drives me crazy is when someone says, oh, don't worry, I can get through it. I can get through it. No, you're never going to get through it. You have to be smart about what you're doing, because if you just go and blast out your voice, you don't have the next day.
Right.
And if you need the next day, that's if you're paying your rent by gigging, it's kind of it's different because it's not a hobby. Yeah. And I don't say that in a condescending way. I think people should sing all the time. I absolutely love it. It's the most joyful thing I think you can ever do. But when you're doing it as a hobby or then when you're doing it as a profession, they're two completely different things.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to get people to understand what you need to do in order to maintain
that. I guess we've been talking for a long time, so I guess we'll just blast over. We'll just, I guess, list off the other things. Depending upon the enrollment and types of instruments, we're going to end up eventually splitting off into some separate things for people that are more on the vocalist side and accompanist side, and people who are more on the accompanist side. We're also going to go over some, we're going to go over some separate things, maybe related to improvisation and such, that could be applicable. And that might, it may be more guitar heavy. It may not, depending upon how many we have or if we don't have any, I don't know. But we'll definitely, in a broad sense, that's what we'll be going over. And then at some point, we'll take those two groups and tie them back into the accompanist vocalist kind of chemistry and what's necessary in working together. And then we're also going to have a point when we go over a lot of performance techniques. I did a course with Livingston Taylor, who's James Taylor's brother at Berkeley, and a lot of the focus in the course was related to just general performance techniques like crowd banter, trying to remove nerves,
mannerisms.
Yes, mannerisms and things related to that. And so we're going to go over kind of an introduction to that, and then we may have an optional performance during the day where somebody can perform a song that they want to showcase, and then we can critique and see what we need to work on. And
it can be songwriters. If you have original material, fabulous. If you're doing a cover song, that's fine too. If you have an accompanist, bring one. If you need an accompanist, we have one.
Yes, I will be accompanying people that do not have one.
So, really and I always like students to pick what they want. I never want to assign songs. I'll help give, examples or maybe we can broaden things out. But I want to know who you are. What do you like? Where are you starting from? Because if you don't sing something that you relate to, there's no reason to be singing it. And I never want to assign something and then someone really doesn't feel it or understand it or have a passion for it. Start there and then branch out from there. So I'm all about whatever material. I would like to keep it more commercial, music theater stuff and classical stuff. Definitely not kind of the forte we're doing right now. No. But anything, if you're a songwriter, if you have a cover song and you're changing it up or whatever, feel free to bring in who you are as an artist right now, and we'll keep working with it.
Yeah. And then finally, we're going to have depending upon how many people want to do it, we're going to have an end of program like performance. We're going to have friends and family come out, and they, we can do a couple songs, each person kind of display what they've been working on over the last few days, and kind of take those lessons and build off those and just only get better. And I think at the end of the day, we're giving suggestions to what inevitably will be progress through their experience in gigging more than anything. I mean, you're only really going to get better through the experience. I mean, nerves ultimately at some point after you gig for the 20th to 50th time or whatever, however many times it takes somebody, you get on stage and you're like, oh, I don't really feel anything. It's not I am dead inside. Yeah. It's just like you're just like, I'm confident and I'm very prepared. I've done this set a bunch of times. Just do it. And you just kind of don't really, you're more focused on the people, and I really hope they like what I do. It's more so just like I wonder what that guy's up to hanging out by the bar, and I don't know.
That's another thing about being an artist. I think no matter what your instrument is, it is that confidence in I'm up here, I'm going to perform for you. I hope you like it. If you don't, that's fine. If you do, welcome aboard. But either way, this is who I am and what I'm presenting, and I have the confidence to do that. I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not going to change it. If I write something and it speaks to me and this is what I want to put out into the world, regardless if 5 people like it or 500,000 people like it, fabulous. It's again starting to get, for me, it's starting to get all of these things streamlined, so therefore you can just start to create. Because you can't just create and not have a background in technique and a background in performing and a background in all this, but then also you can't have this background and then not create. They really do have to go together. And you have to learn how to make that grow as you grow.
Yeah.
So because you want to be able to do this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So, and as we know, with every experience we have and every birthday we have and every whatever we have, our experience changes, our voice changes, our instrument, we just continue to grow and evolve. And we just want to be able to do that for as long as we can.
Awesome. Well, all of that sounds absolutely fantastic. So
20 minutes later.
That's a lot of
yeah. No, but that's absolutely killer. I think there's a lot of people that can get a lot of value out of everything, between getting comfortable in your own skin before you go up on stage to breaking down what you're doing, all the different subtleties of it. Because I totally agree. If you don't have a background in what you're doing, if you can't have the facility to be able to do it, trying to emote, you're gonna hit blocks. But then the inverse happens. You can have everything lined up ready to go, and then everything gets tossed out the window as soon as you get up there. Right. So I love the way you guys both came from both directions. I wanted to talk a little bit too before before everybody goes on their way, talk about, you guys are performing, the two of you are performing at the Narrows. I believe it is June 12th, if I remember correctly.
It is June 12th. Yeah, we're at the Narrow Center for the Arts. It is both of ours. It is both our first headline show there. I was fortunate enough to play there a few years ago. I opened for Sarah Potenza, who at some point was on The Voice. I don't remember what year. She's a lot like a Janis Joplin Americana type influence act. And that was really great. We had a really full room. So I'm hoping this time we have a great turnout. I know we're looking forward to it. So yeah, that's Wednesday, June 12th, which is a few days before the workshop. But yeah.
And I've never been to your part of the world, so I'm excited to see it and to bring music up to a different part of the country. So it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, you come here at a good time. Hopefully it'll be done raining. We've had rain for weeks on weeks.
Oh.
But this will be really cool. So all of the students who are going to be signing up can see everything live in action beforehand. So you can see that the two of you walk the walk as well as talk the talk, which is absolutely fantastic.
So important as well. And that's something you have to look at as a teacher. Do I like what they're doing? Do I agree with what they're doing? Is that something that I want to learn, and is that something that inspires me? So I hope we do that.
Yeah, and I hope people enrolled decide to come out. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. So. And
it also, if they're kind of sitting on the fence about it, hopefully it'll kind of give them the incentive to say, yeah, this is cool. I want to know more about this. So please come out and see the show, and we'd love to meet you. Come out afterwards. Let's talk. If you need some more information about the course, we'll be definitely, we'll have that opportunity to see each other face to face and talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so we're pretty excited.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you. Thank you for taking the time to talk about the course and your history and everything. I look forward to meeting both of you and seeing you perform at the Narrows, and then seeing you around Doublebar on the 15th and 16th.
Yes, and I'm excited to see the new building. Yeah.
So cool. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both, Stephanie and Aaron, and we will see and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ryan. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.